Hey friends, welcome back to my series, Vintage Life in the Modern World. I'm so glad you're here. This episode will be a little bit more personal and a little close to my heart. It's self-care, and not the treat yourself kind of indulgence. I mean the kind of care that's quiet and grounding and often built into everyday life. The kind of care that has helped women hold things together, even when they didn't have much time, money, or energy to spare. Don't forget, as with all of the episodes, I have put together a special companion guide for this episode, available exclusively to my New Look tier on my Patreon. It's a digital guide with extra tips, product suggestions, and slow beauty rituals that aren't found in this video. Designed to just give you more tools, ideas, and vintage-inspired practices to explore at your own pace. As many of you know, I have been a licensed esthetician for over 18 years. So I have got some experience in skincare and makeup. I love seeing vintage skincare routines and what products they used and swore by back in the day. But I'm also a firm believer in science and progress. And we have learned so much about the human body and our skin since the days of putting arsenic and uranium into creams, toothpastes, and makeup. So while I can appreciate that there are some vintage brands and products that are still available today, I am not a vintage purist when it comes to this at all, and I will always side with safety, efficacy, and supporting the skin over nostalgia. This video isn't about glorifying the good old days. It's about finding comfort, purpose, and ease in some of the daily habits that have stood the test of time. So get comfy, make yourself a cup of tea or your favorite beverage, and let's have a good cozy chat about self-care. One thing that stands out when we look at vintage beauty routines is how minimal they were. Not because minimalism was trendy, but because it was necessary. Fewer products, but with more care. Women often only had a few staple products, but used them with intention. Cleansing the skin wasn't just a quick splash of water at the sink. It was a ritual. And applying creams wasn't rushed. It was a part of winding down. So let's take a slow walk through the decades of self-care. In the Victorian era, skincare came pretty much straight from the pantry or the garden. There weren't beauty stores the way that we know them today. Cosmetics and toiletries were bought at apothecaries or general stores, or more commonly made at home with knowledge passed down from generations or cobbled together from books, almanacs, and home remedies. Women used what they had: rosewater tonics made from steeped petals, beeswax balms mixed with almond oil, or milk and oatmeal baths to soften the skin. Egg whites were often used as masks to tighten the skin, like a primitive pore treatment. These weren't luxury treatments. They were practical, homemade, and often multi-purpose. And they worked well enough considering what was available. The 1920s and 30s was the golden age of cold creams. Pond's, Noxzema, and other early beauty brands marketed cold creams as a one-stop solution. Women massaged it in, wiped it off with a warm cloth, or just a tissue sometimes, and we're done. It was deeply moisturizing and effective at removing makeup. Some women use lemon juice to brighten their skin, something that we would caution against now because it is far too acidic. But at the time, it felt like a natural solution to dullness or spots. World War II, of course, changed everything. There were rations, limited imports, and shortages across the board. So women got creative, making homemade masks using honey, oats, bananas, or yogurt, witch hazel or rubbing alcohol as toners. Harsh, yes, but accessible. And creams were often petroleum or lanolin based to help lock in moisture. The 1960s really ushered in more lab-based skincare and a growing awareness of sun damage. Women started using vanishing creams and lighter textures, but in many households, the traditional routines stuck around. It wasn't uncommon to see daughters and mothers still using cold cream together. Now, let's be honest, not every vintage product needs a revival. Some are beautiful and timeless, and others we have just outgrown. As someone who has spent years working with the skin, here are a few vintage habits that I love, but with a modern upgrade. Cold cream was fantastic for removing makeup, especially the really heavy pancake makeup. But almost all modern cold creams have replaced plant oils with mineral oil and introduced artificial fragrances and alcohol. So a better alternative, oil cleansing. Try jojoba oil or an oil-based cleansing balm. They dissolve the makeup beautifully without clogging pores. And whether you still use cold cream or you do an oil cleansing, it is very important to double cleanse with an additional cleanser suited for your skin type. In the 1940s and 50s, women used strong astringents that included rubbing alcohol or pure witch hazel to tighten the skin. It felt refreshing, but it ultimately damages the skin barrier. Instead, opt for hydrating toners with rose water, aloe vera, or hyaluronic acid. Bar soap was a staple for decades, but most were far too harsh for the face. Now we have more gentle pH-balanced facial cleansers like cream cleansers, gel, or milk cleansers that help to maintain a healthy skin. Old school night creams were often thick and occlusive, made with petroleum jelly or lanolin. These just don't allow your skin to breathe and go through its natural detoxification process. Instead, using lightweight serums or gel-based night creams with ceramides or peptides that hydrate and allow your skin to breathe. You don't have to give up vintage rituals, but we can swap in better tools. Let's shift gears just a little bit. So when I say self-care, I also mean emotional care, space to breathe, a daily rhythm. And here's where I want to be especially thoughtful on this. It's easy to look back and imagine women of the past lounging with tea, sewing quietly by candlelight. But that wasn't reality for most women. Women were working either at home or outside of it, raising kids, cooking from scratch, managing households, and often all at once, and often with no help. But even in that reality, small rituals still existed, tiny windows of peace. Here are some of those examples that I love and try to bring into my own days. Before social media, people took time to put their thoughts into words. A letter wasn't just communication, it was an act of reflection. Even keeping a diary gave women a private space to process, plan, or dream. You don't need a fountain pen or vintage stationery, although in my experience, it doesn't hurt. Just try writing a few lines at the end of the day. I have journaled for many years, and it clears and organizes my mind more than I ever expected it to. It also helps me to practice my handwriting. I love beautiful penmanship, and this is a great way for me to continue to practice that. Afternoon tea wasn't always about the tea. It was about the pause. That little break in the day where you just stop, breathe, and reset. Even now, I'll take a break sometime around 3 o'clock and either make a cup of tea or just sit for a little while to mark the transition from go, go, go to, okay, it's time to start slowing down. It's not always quiet. Sometimes there's laundry or emails or Mildred's asking to play, but that cup of tea or that pause still feels incredibly grounding. Perfume wasn't just for going out. Women had signature scents that made them feel elegant and put together. Floral, powdery, sometimes bold, that made them feel like themselves. I've been fascinated by scent and the whole concept of vintage fragrance houses for as long as I can remember. When I worked at Sephora, way back in the day, some of my favorite trainings were the fragrance trainings. These fragrance houses would come and teach us about the meaning and the concept behind these fragrances. And it just felt so deep and personal. Now, because I was a massage therapist and esthetician for so long, I just never wore fragrances. But once I retired, I have started to create a really nice little collection of beautiful scents. And they really do help me to complete my whole outfit. And sometimes they even just change my mood. There's something really comforting about choosing a scent and wearing it just for you. Many vintage perfumes were much more complex and longer lasting than modern ones. And if you've ever had a chance to try a vintage inspired scent, I highly recommend it. Let's talk a little bit about rest. And let's be honest about it. In vintage ads and homemaking guides, you'll often see women reclining, reading, doing their embroidery. But that is not the whole story. For working class women, rest was often hard won, and it wasn't a choice. It was snuck in between tasks. Still, structured rests existed. People had routines, and they took transitions seriously. The space between day and night, work and home, doing and being. A few vintage habits around rest that feel as relevant now as they ever were are taking a walk after dinner, not for steps or goals, just to clear the head, breathe, and digest the day. An evening constitutional, if you will. Now that we have Mildred, this has been a really pleasant addition to our evening. Intentional leisure time. No screens or scrolling, just hobbies as a way to recharge. Maybe letter writing, journaling, some handwork like cross stitch or embroidery with soft music or the radio playing. Evening wind down routines. Brushing your hair, taking off your makeup with care and intention, putting on a robe or slippers as a signal that the day is ending. You don't need hours to do this. Even just 10 intentional minutes can shift your entire mood. Vintage beauty routines were often about investing time up front, but then you get to coast for days. Like we talked about in the last episode of vintage homemaking, batch cooking and meal prepping are a really good example of this. Spend a little bit of time on the front end to have the effortless aftermath. I am a big fan of this concept, and there are a few high maintenance things that I do regularly that help me stay low maintenance. The wet set. Rolling your hair once a week so you have curls and effortless vintage waves for days. Weekly manicures. Or if you do a gel manicure, you can get them to last up to 2 weeks. Shaping and buffing the nails so they always look polished. Ironing or steaming outfits in advance. Now, I will admit this is one that I really need to get better at, but ironing or steaming your clothes ahead of time to avoid those daily outfit stresses. So not a vintage beauty hack, but I also tint my brows once a month so they look fuller, and even if I don't have makeup on, I still have brows. I also do a lash lift and tint. As curly as my hair is naturally, my lashes grow straight out, just absolutely straight. They do not curl whatsoever. And they're also really light. So I started doing a lash lift. It lasts about 2 months. And then I also tint them as well. So that way I don't have to curl my lashes all the time. And even when I'm not wearing makeup or I'm wearing very minimal makeup, I still have lashes and I at least feel like they're there. And it does kind of cut down. I don't have to wear as much mascara. So it does cut down a little bit on that as well. But these are small acts of care that communicate something bigger, that you are worth the time it takes to make your life a little easier. If there's one thing people in the past got right, it was taking sleep seriously. No doom scrolling, no all-nighters, just structured, intentional sleep habits. So no screens, no buzzing notifications, just slow, structured steps. Skincare, brushing hair, maybe reading or writing, even small habits like wrapping your hair, using a lavender sachet, or dimming the lights helps your body shift gears into this nighttime routine. We think of sleep as a passive thing, but past generations knew it was active care. They created space for it and treated it with intention. The way we think of self-care today is often tied to buying products, but true self-care is about habits, rituals, taking the time for ourselves in ways that nourish us. Whether it's simplifying your skincare routine, dressing in a way that makes you feel cozy and comfortable, or creating an evening routine that actually helps you rest. There's so much that we can learn from the past. You don't need to overhaul your life. Just start small. Pick one thing that makes your day feel a little bit more peaceful and begin there. It can be washing your face with care and intention, wearing your favorite scent on a Tuesday afternoon, planning your outfits ahead to reduce decision fatigue, or just taking 10 minutes to drink tea and stare out the window. Now tell me, what's one vintage self-care habit that you are going to try this week? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like access to the full companion guide for this episode, you can get it by joining my New Look tier on Patreon. It's filled with additional self-care tips, beauty insights, and gentle routines to help you bring more intention to your daily life. You'll also get monthly live chats, vintage magazine scans, behind-the-scenes updates, and more. Your support truly makes this series possible, and I am grateful to have you here. If you're enjoying this series, stay tuned. Next time we are going to be talking about vintage hobbies that help us unplug and slow down. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time.